Captain America, the First Avenger, starring Chris Evans, Hayley Atwell, Sebastian Stan, Tommy Lee Jones, Hugo Weaving, Dominic Cooper, Stanley Tucci, and Toby Jones. It's set slightly apart from the other superhero movies just by being, essentially a period piece as well. It takes place during the Second World War, follows Steve Rogers. When we meet him, he's a skinny, tiny guy who desperately wants to join the army and go fight in the war as he feels a strong sense of duty. But he keeps getting rejected for physical reasons until he catches the eye of Professor Abraham Erskine, a scientist working on a super soldier serum. Rogers gets picked up for the program and eventually does become Captain America, a soldier with enhanced strength, speed, agility, and durability. He'll need to use all those newfound talents to beat the Nazis, specifically the Red Skull, head of Hitler's scientific division, who uncovers a powerful artifact and plans to harness its energies for world domination. Sounds cheesy? It is. I won't say no, even though Captain America himself is my favorite MCU character. Because if I'm honest, he grew to be that favorite, but it wasn't right from the get go. In fact, knowing him slightly from the old Spider Man cartoons, I always thought he was quite lame and one dimensional. And I skipped this film when it originally aired in theaters and then watched the Avengers and thought Captain was kind of annoying. And then I saw the sequel, Winter Soldier. It completely blew me away, and then with how this character evolved, and so then I went back and saw it again and appreciated it much more. But having now returned to the first Avenger for another rewatch, I have to say, even though it isn't the best appearance of Steve Rogers, it certainly does its job of setting up the character, positioning him on his journey to follow. It clearly establishes his origins in terms of, powers, but even more importantly, of who he is as a person, which values he has, what drives him. And this has its pros and cons in terms of the film. On the one hand, the character work is very solid. On the other, it means that the plot of the film is kind of secondary in the background. Rogers and Red Skull, who is the main villain, don't even meet until after halfway through the film. And while, the adventures of Captain America and his evolution from a glorified performer to a hardened soldier are fun to watch, again, as cheesy as they sometimes are, it feels like we just occasionally switch to Red Skull to catch up with him, see that he's still in his lab, still delivering menacing sounding lines, but not really doing too much, and we don't really know what's at stake here. And as a result, if you're not that focused on the character journey as an audience member, you may be slightly disappointed with the way that the pacing of the story is handled. Fortunately, it all comes together towards the end, which is a pretty emotional end. I think one of the saddest endings to a superhero movie. I think that the performances are good, the characters have noticeable chemistry between them, special effects are great, particularly the skinny version of Steve Rogers. I also really like the score, and in fact I'm quite disappointed that Steve's main theme hasn't been used to a greater extent later in the MCU, because it is a very good piece of music. All said and done, I think that the first Avenger is a pretty good character-focused superhero movie. Is it the best Captain America film? No. Is it perfect? Of course not. But it is quite entertaining nonetheless, and it does a really good job of setting up a character that becomes so fantastic in later movies.